Maverick's 4.5. He is a really funny kid.
Maverick loves airplanes, anything to do with airplanes, just driving by the airport to watch airplanes fly. Yeah, he's a really smart kid too.
Hello, pilots!
We learned about Maverick's condition when he was born.
The notes from the radiologist would start to say Swiss cheese, which seems, of course, crazy. But I guess when you have enough holes between the chambers in your heart, it suddenly becomes Swiss cheese.
The pregnancy in the beginning was really normal. When we were about 7 months along, they saw some things that looked like heart defects. It was a lot to take in that moment.
I mean, we knew at that point that he would need surgery pretty much right after birth.
When he was born, he wasn't breathing, so they needed to take him immediately to the NICU and get some oxygen on him, and he became so critical that they said he couldn't be held. You go through a grieving process a little bit. We were asking about long-term, when he becomes a teenager, when he becomes an adult, and they were saying because of the complexity of his heart, when he's older, when he's an adult, he was going to need a heart transplant.
The most common malformation that children have with congenital heart defects is a hole between either the upper chambers or between the two lower chambers. 9 times out of 10, it's a single isolated hole in the heart. The most difficult type, which is what Maverick had, is what's the so-called Swiss cheese type. And it's not a simple wall with the holes that are directly, it's more like a forest with branches, and where the holes are winding up and down and left and right like a labyrinth. His anatomy was one of the most complicated anatomies I've seen within the Swiss cheese spectrum. You can see all these holes here. Same here, all these holes.
So he was delivered, it was 2 weeks in the NICU, and then he was well enough to go to surgery.
They couldn't sew that part of his heart because there's so many holes. If they sew them closed, then his heart won't be able to pump.
They had done what's called palliative steps, including what's called a PA band to prevent the lungs from being flooded. You're basically just pushing the ball down the line. You're not actually curing the patient.
He went through it successfully. He was strong. But in fall of 2021, his condition started to really change. He was 3 going on 4 when his oxygen sort of started to steadily decrease. He really had an acute change that affected his quality of life. So he was getting dizzy, he was sort of stumbling, he'd fall really easily. That was really scary.
The way I heard about the case is I got an email from his cardiologist saying, I was wondering if you could help us. 15 plus years ago, I had a patient with Swiss cheese septum that we were able to repair successfully, and I was working with a pediatric cardiologist. By working together, we could actually take on more complicated cases. When they got in touch with me, it was clear that he was at the end of the rope. It was just in the nick of time.
I think that phone call was on like a Wednesday, and on Sunday we were flying out of our hometown and flying to New York.
He's like, I've seen this, I do this, I'm confident I can close these holes for him. But we weren't thinking it was gonna be like a fix-all, cure-all, like a heart transplant wasn't necessarily off the table for later in life.
He had about 10 to 12 holes at the apex, and that's an area that's sort of a no man's land for surgeons. It's the most difficult region of the heart to get to. That's why basically nobody wanted to touch Maverick. I realized it is a difficult case, but I knew I could fix it. We have to do open heart surgery, meaning we have to open a patient's chest, put the patient on the heart-lung machine, stop the heart, then open the upper chamber, get access to the hole, and then stitch a patch made out of artificial tissue or your own tissue. That gets stitched with sutures, thereby closing the hole, and then you close the chest and you bring the patient up to the ICU.
He kind of popped out of a partition.
And he has this huge smile on his face. And I'm like, if you're smiling, we're definitely smiling. And he just like has a cup of coffee in one hand and his hand on his hip. And he's like, I can't believe it. It was just great. It went great. If I told you how well it could be, it went better than that. And we're like, yay! Brad asked this question. He said, so what does it look like long-term for Maverick? Is he gonna need another surgery? Is he gonna need a heart transplant? And we got like the best news we've ever gotten in our whole lives. And he looked at us and he said, Maverick will probably never need surgery for anything ever again. It was awesome. We thought for sure, like when he's an adult, so what if he gets married, if he has kids, he has to have a heart transplant, like what's his life gonna be like? And then to know like, it's gonna be normal. He gets to just grow up and be himself. It was amazing.
I'm happy to say that his prognosis is outstanding. Basically, he's back to essentially a normal life expectancy curve.
Do you have more energy?
Yeah.
When do you think you were faster, with your old heart or your new heart? Which one was faster? Yeah?
It's been a huge change. I mean, there is a night and day difference.
He said, my old heart used to really slow me down. We're like, yeah, now you're super fast. And he can feel it, like he'll tell you that he feels faster, stronger.
Oh, that was a great throw.
It feels like you can breathe. To just watch him like run around to his heart's content, like how miraculous and fantastic is this?
Hi.
It makes us really happy every day.